can't do
Weren't
this
you here
either.
when we went till nearly midnight?
Yes, and I can't keep doing this, I'm telling you.
So
Imagine how we feel.
if I may, I'd like to
I know.
go back to Amy to go to item 5B.
Were there any non-budget or recovery items for the manager? I didn't want it to end that report on that note. I think Chief had a question.
I have a question on the Cherry Mill Bridge. Have you decided on what kind of gating you're gonna put on that?
What kind of gauge I'm gonna put on that? Can you ask that question in a different way?
Gate.
Oh, gate. Okay, I was like, I don't know what you mean by a gauge. We have not. So what we're going to do, I guess I can announce this now. We're going to bring in the stakeholders on that, the emergency services stakeholders that'll need that, and kind of convene a working group to come up with a common sense solution that works. There's a contingency in the contract that was approved for that. So no, the answer is no, but we'll be in touch.
Okay.
So I hope that you have a solution, because I don't.
I hope I do, but
I hope you do too. I think we could just pay like a gremlin to live there and just, open the gate when you come.
The bridge troll, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good question.
Amy, would you like to give your report, please?
Okay. Yes, a lot of you were here for the budget hearings, or I've met in other ways, but I'm Amy Heinrich, the new Finance and HR Director. Yes, we have been very busy trying to put everything in place. I just wanted to give a little more, still informal, but detail behind some of the steps that Eden talked about last night in terms of, what we're doing and how quickly we're doing it. And I can do a more thorough write-up, as Eden said. We hadn't quite had time to write it all up, and but we definitely will. There'll be a lot more formal policies and procedures and so forth. Okay, so in no particular order, the accounting software. So we've talked about that during the budget process. We currently have QuickBooks. QuickBooks has limited controls. There are some controls you can use beyond what have been used in the past. So I am, currently using more of the things that can be used, but it still has holes and gaps. And the way it is set up for us is definitely not sufficient and not optimal in terms of efficiency or anything else. So we all believe, and consulted many, believe that the QuickBooks isn't sufficient, and we will be looking for a more formal general ledger accounting system. Having been from municipal as well as private sector, I have implemented multiple general ledgers, as well as enhanced very big reporting systems. I have a lot of systems background. And I looked at several municipal systems in my prior experience. So from the municipal systems perspective, some of them are great because they have general ledgers as well as other things like permit management and utility billing and other things that would benefit the township, the GPS, GIS information, things that might be useful long-term in stormwater and the sewer system. But that is a much bigger scope to take on. Some of the advantages of those municipal systems, those things are good, but the general ledger side of them are not very good. So the importance of the unique thing to government accounting is that it has its own accounting standard. So it's not FASB, if anyone from the private sector knows of the Common Accounting Standard. It's GASB, Government Accounting Standards Board. And
Remember, we talked about that last night.
the way in which the financial statements are done and the way in which the accounting is handled is very different. So the system needs to support that. That doesn't mean it needs to be a municipal specialty system. But a lot of the municipal systems in the general ledger space are older. They don't have the modern technology, they don't have the modern features, and they're not very efficient. And they wouldn't give us the things that we want. As a very small finance staff, we need something also that will give us efficiency and be able to give reporting in a way that I'm not grinding away in Excel constantly. Although I like Excel, we need something that will have a better ability for the board, for Eden to provide oversight, for the public to see better financial statements, more detailed financial statements, more graphical type information, all on the website and available. So that's what we're looking at. And so far, the municipal systems cannot provide that. So I am looking at private sector systems that specialize in nonprofit. I wouldn't say specialize in government, but they support fund accounting, and they have a strong nonprofit following. There's some downsides of those as well because they don't have those other government features, but they do support fund accounting. I am in my final stages to try to make a decision. I have to vet a couple more details on my lead candidate. Part of the reason we're talking about it here and now is that there may be an ability to negotiate better terms if we commit by the end of the year. So I'm trying to see if I can finalize my last couple of outstanding things I want to verify to bring something to you for at the December 30th meeting. There is money in the budget. We've already kind of covered the general scope of it, but more specifically, it is a big purchase and it is a big implementation cost that is all in the budget. But
And implementation time.
yes.
3
I mean,
months.
it probably. I feel like we'll be lucky if it's implemented in April. So between now and then, Megan and I are gonna make QuickBooks work. And, we're starting to make some improvements and we'll have to do some things to get where we need to be, in January so that we can enable reporting between now and when we go live. So we'll be busy, doing our best, and hopefully I can come back with a recommendation.
Amy, for the couple that you were looking at, I think Amy mentioned that we might be able to sort of test drive them, or you might be able to give us a demo.
So that was a question, what will it take to get this approved? What do we need to do to see if we can get this in before year end? I have some of the demos were videotaped, particularly the lead contender right now. The demo they gave us was videotaped, so I could bring snippets of that to play, cut it out. Probably could get them to do something live if we really wanted to. So if that's something you really want to see at that level of detail, then we can do that.
I think that would be exciting to see, don't you guys think? I think, board, don't you think? I think.
Yeah.
Why not? Let's take a look at it.
Yeah, I think.
And whether it's, the demo doesn't have, total sample reports of what all it can do. It gives you a glimpse.
Well, I think it would give everybody a sense of confidence of what we're doing and how we're moving forward. And, there's the other issue here of kind of moving generally from a cash basis to a modified accrual basis of accounting and how those benefits are going to help the township make sure that everybody has a better sense of where every dollar and every penny is going. And I think that the public.
Lady, that's a great point. Did everyone catch that? Has everyone heard that? I know we had some new attendees here. So we're currently on a cash-based accounting system, which makes sense if you're a small rural township and you don't bring in a lot of money, but we're not a small rural township and we bring in a lot of money. So we need a more sophisticated accounting process. So Amy's in the process of transitioning us from a cash-based accounting system to a modified accrual-based accounting system in compliance with the GASB standards, which stands for the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So that'll take some time to do, but
Yes.
it's happening.
Yes, that we'll do in conjunction with our auditors over a couple years actually, because of the way you have to show the balance, do the year-over-year view from this year's closeout to next year as opposed to, going backwards. So we have to figure out a lot of things with our auditor.
Yeah, and I realize we dropped you in the middle of everything several months late into the budget season on top of it, and you've been.
I had an almost approved budget where I was.
I know.
You've done 2 in 1 year then.
Yeah, but
I was
she doesn't
done.
get to take a year off because of that.
No.
So. Yeah, so no, I really appreciate you've been moving financial mountains, and you deserve a lot of commendation for that.
There's questions.
Yes.
No, she hasn't finished talking.
No, I'm good.
You sure? Please. Okay, so, Amy, so you mentioned that the municipal ones out there aren't modernized enough, or are they too expensive, or for our.
Even the
something
best
our
in the
size?
business is not modern and is not, it's so cumbersome because it's more, it's probably better for a big city. It can handle the most complicated city that it's overly cumbersome but it's not. It's not modern and clickable and drillable and.
So what do townships around our size do?
We don't want to comment on the accounting software programs of our friends in other municipalities.
So
It's a known challenge amongst my peers
That's
that
a good
the
answer.
software is a challenge.
That's a good answer.
nobody loves their software. There are people on QuickBooks, there are people on the Behemoth. Everybody will tell you that there's limitations. And there are a lot of townships that aren't looking for the most modern. They don't have a finance director that could utilize the most modern. So the types of things that we want to do, most townships aren't, aren't fully doing or.
Right, and let me just add some of the capabilities. So a lot of these will be able to easily post things online for us, for our township. Will they be able to obviously interface with our bank? We want to do some positive paychecks. Will they give that, in some of the more modern systems, can they almost, I wouldn't say be open to the public? There are a lot of current public databases that people can just log into and
Yeah.
search on. Will it have that capability also?
That's one of my outstanding questions. So something of a more of a dashboard capability where a light user, which would be basically the people at this table, all of you, whether it's department heads or you, or even read only for kind of reporting and financial statement purposes and drill in and look at stuff. So you could go into, P&L and then say, well, what's that? And, and drill in. That's a higher level capability than you would ever have on a website for the public. But similarly, there are, some ways you can kind of push images up to the website that are reflections of that. They might not be as dynamic. Some of them are a little dynamic. I also know that there are other systems that sit on top of those so this software that I'm looking at integrates with tons of other things that you could put more of that kind of public website feature on top of
It's like
it.
APIs with the.
Right.
Can she just finish speaking, please?
Right, and so those would allow for maybe, getting nice graphs or outputs to look at it differently.
Right.
Or getting a spreadsheet output.
Right, so
Potentially from
at
that.
a bare minimum, and this is part of
Okay.
like, almost none of them have, a bare minimum is things that could get to you, to any of you very easily with both statement looking information as well as graphical information and drilling capability. And then be able to get that quickly without a lot of manipulation up to the public in a, PDF it and put it up there. As opposed to downloading and manipulating and
Right.
all of that.
So the public, I just want to clarify, when she says she's pushing it out, the public is going to get a product that comes from the system, not from the human. So we're eliminating that factor of potential manipulation. So that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, I've always frankly had a lot of things that have to be done in Excel. So I am a big fan of Excel and good in it, but it is time consuming in the setting that we're in when I don't have much of a staff. I've always had a large staff in previous jobs, so yeah, it's just we need something more efficient to not have to.
Great, thank you.
Just a second. Either one have anything more? So as I recall the hands, it was here, then there were the two men in the back, and the lady with the flag. In that,
My question is, if you go too deep with your software, what happens if you leave? Who's gonna run it for the township? We've run into that with the cemetery. We've been there and done that, and then the software company closed.
The one I'm looking at has a very wide corporate user base. So that, that is part of my follow-up as well, is there, how deep and strong are they? But I know they've gotten a lot of awards and, they're a modern platform out there. In terms of the use, I'm looking for something that is intuitive and easy to use. I have set up a lot of things in prior places that they are very sophisticated in Excel. But then they need somebody that is fairly sophisticated in Excel to utilize. You can set them up pretty well without a lot of maintenance, but yeah, if you have nobody on staff that can manipulate in Excel and you have something, that's a problem. So a software that is intuitive and user-friendly and you drill and you click rather than dig through menu items, it would help with that, any training aspect.
So I think there was a question back here.
Bill Huffaker, Rosedale Road. Do you have any estimate on how much additional money funds is gonna be required in the next 6 months as you're planning on it? And then in the next 2 years, as you implement the new system, and are those funds in the budget?
All of what we've been talking about are in the budget.
Yeah, so, we put in the budget, an estimate for the core software cost. It is an annual subscription, so it runs $20,000 to $22,000 a year. I'm trying to negotiate, cause I don't wanna go past the 22,000 and I gotta check exactly what we put in the budget. And then the implementation is quite pricey. It's about 1.5 times the annual cost. But that is all in the budget right now for 2020. There is an ongoing cost. I have checked around and compared, and the pricing on the government systems, the better government systems is high as well, is equivalent as well. These things are hosted, so we don't have things like servers to maintain and storage to worry about, and some things that I've had in prior experiences, where, you run into all this maintenance problem and needing IT support to provide it all. The fully hosted solution, fully cloud backup, fully digital, we will be scanning and attaching either getting invoices electronically and attaching them, or scanning them and attaching them. So that every invoice, so when things are approved by department heads, by Eden, by, whatever the proper approval stuff is, the invoice is in there, anyone can go back and see who approved it, when they approved it. So all of that takes a lot of storage, that cost is covered in the annual subscription. So, we've tried to look at as much as possible. That said, prices do go up, and when you want more, what about the interface that can get absolute, perfect drilling capability on the website for all the public? I mean, there are gonna be things that it could do more over time, and it could cost more. I mean, that's inevitable. I mean, those would be optional.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, so the pricing that you talked about, that includes hardware upgrades as well for the PCs to?
We have actually upgraded, I think all or most of our PCs, in the last year. So we do have a good set of PCs. I think it was, almost all of them were replaced.
Mr. Vella, thanks for your patience.
Sure, no problem.
There's a question.
Amy,
Well, except he was on the line, so go ahead.
sure, thank you.
Good.
Um,
I'll be over here.
Amy, how long has the township been working with QuickBooks, to your knowledge?
At least
Um,
2008.
I spent as little time going backwards as possible, given that Markham was doing all that. I was focusing on understanding the real recurring expenses. There are records in there, like, it's really fuzzy going back, because there's some conversion records, and I honestly haven't dug into it. 2012, there's some data there that I can see.
Yeah. So for some time.
My understanding from Markham was that there was a previous version of QuickBooks that went back to 2008 or 9, and then there was an update, and so there's some conversion in there as well.
Yeah, so I have some records from earlier years, but it looks.
Another kind of a two-part question. Who has access to the accounting software in the township right now? Obviously, you.
Right now.
Obviously, Eden.
No.
No. Just
No,
you.
so some of our controls, segregating Eden and myself, and so he can look from an oversight perspective. So the example of the new system where he could see a higher level view and have, see certain things, but not be able to see it, not be able to, right, that's what I'm trying to say. So right now he does not have access. Megan is the team member that I work with the most, so she and I are the only ones that have access as employees. Megan Gardner, she's in the back. And we are still having Umbright help us with some segregation of duties, reconciling bank statements, until we can get the right training internally and the right access to have true segregation duties independently.
Last question here, you were obviously there last night at the Red Playroom, and Aiden went into great detail in terms of some of the initiatives that you're just spelling out right now. And, how much of this decision is really based on just upgrading equipment, and how much of it is based on, what the township is unfortunately embroiled in right now, and in order to better safeguard safety, security, et cetera? Sounds like it's a bit of both.
If I came into a position at a township with the processes and procedures and the systems and so forth in the state they are in, with no fraud, I would be making very similar recommendations.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of fraud. There was also a lack of operating policies and procedures to go with that. So, that is what we need to put in place. It wasn't just that. I mean, there's a lot of things that we need to look at and bit by bit chip away at.
Yeah, this is one component of that.
This is one component.
Thank you.
There's a question, yes, sir?
The core software, is it going to require additional programming as part of your implementation process?
No, that's one of the things about the modern systems. They're configurable and not specialty coding.
So-
I've had lots of experience with long implementations from specialty coding, and that's a nightmare.
So it's ready to use out of the box type of thing?
You set it up for your chart of accounts, your workflow, how you want to use its features, so you configure it, but you don't code anything.
Okay, will the staff training be done by the vendor, and is that included in the price?
Yes, that is why the implementation cost is high. Or, part of it.
Yes, John?
John Hedrick, as you formulate a recommendation, are you going to be involved in competitive bid process for a township purchase of this kind or not?
It's not subject to the purchasing rules for this type of purchase. I mean, you can't compare apples to apples on everything, so it's not, you couldn't bid on none of the systems are equal or the same.
In the second class township code, it falls under the professional services provision, which exempts it from those bidding requirements. So it'd be like hiring an attorney or an engineer.
What's next on your agenda?
Okay. So,
Number one.
controls. Controls, the system, as Rich mentioned, is part of the system, but it's also the whole set of processes. So, just to give a little more behind some of what Eden referenced last night, we will be working on a full policy and procedure manual, both for the financial functions as well as for the HR functions. We are retaining the two signatures that they're currently doing. The board are the only authorized signers. When they sign off, they get the checks and all the backup, and eventually in the new system, we'd have the option to do that all electronically. So we also have one board member that has oversight of the banking systems as well. So, I'm getting more and more involved in, you'll see in the bill register, approval for me to transfer the funds so that, we don't have the board members doing each and every step, but that, they have the oversight, but they have the ability to look and see and have the oversight they didn't have before. On the other hand, Eden doesn't. So you have to have a mix of people that can see and have oversight and or execute, and a mix of people that, he would be able to validate from financial statements and or from bank statements and so forth. So you don't want everybody to be able to transact, for example. So then within, one of the things that we're actively working on is expanding our financial reporting. As I've said, I spent most of my time digesting the real business of the township, the real transactions from recent time, as well as working with each of the department heads to understand what vendors they use, how they do what they do, and what they need to do what they do, and differentiate from 2019 expenses from the valid versus the not valid, as well as a further step is to continue to dig, as people mentioned, we talked about in the budget hearings, do we know that that's the absolute best, price or service or, scope of services? And we'll be looking over time at what, what vendors are doing, what their scope is, what we're paying. Things do go through bid cycles, but already, but we'll obviously continue that as well as make sure that, the services, we know what services we're getting for the money we're paying, and we know, how, what we want and how much it costs, as opposed to, we want all that and we don't know the cost, or not realizing what you're getting for your money, if that makes sense. Like really understanding what you get for your money and how that compares to, okay, take these features out, what can you get? Where the trade-offs are. So those discussions will be happening. The financial reporting will be extensive. Today I just have the bill voucher pack that is more detailed, which I'll touch on. Well, I'll finish the general controls and then we'll go into it. But the financial reporting, I know we've talked about in the budget hearings. We don't yet have a full P&L for 2019. That has been challenging given QuickBooks and given how QuickBooks has been set up and how the look and feel of it all pulling together an accurate financial statement. Right. So I was trying to do that, but we've had a lot of interruptions over the last few days that time is hard to find, and time to get it in a place where we would be, where we have any confidence in it. So I will continue to work towards that. I will aim for more and more each meeting, and hopefully more at the December 30th meeting. But we will have, going forward, we would have a full P&L, we have P&L versus budget, we have variance commentary, we'll have, when we get a handle on our balances and fund balances, we'll have a balance sheet a fund balance view every single month. So all that will be, fully inclusive, and we'll do the best we can off QuickBooks and Excel until we get a new system, and then the new system would obviously make that much more efficient. That's financial reporting. Payroll. Oh, sorry.
One question: does the QuickBooks transfer easily to the system that you're talking about?
The upload, the conversion processes. It is easy to convert into the system I'm looking at. Some systems are not. Yeah. But the price I'm looking at includes 1 full year of conversion. We've been advised that the data in the past isn't worth converting. I can't fully make a decision on that until I look back more, to Markham more, as well as talk to our future auditors on what we will need to do with regards to the past. But once we convert that 1 year, there's a template, and I could convert more myself. And
Another question: do the auditors have, since they're doing something on one system, is that convertible to the system that you could pick up their information?
what Markham has?
I'm sorry?
What Markham has?
Yes.
The forensic accountant?
Yes.
We're gonna get together as soon as possible and see, they basically have a load of spreadsheets that they've been working off of. So the part of the process of getting me up to speed with what they have will be what do they have and what I can do with it. If it's in Excel, I can convert it, because I can map anything from anything in Excel, and get it converted should we deem the effort worth it. So I can do it, like whatever the effort takes, if we want to put that time and effort in.
Good question. Payroll. Or
Yes.
not payroll, sorry.
Yeah, so
Pay bills.
well, so no, actually, my controls, payroll. So payroll, we've already outsourced payroll. The term outsourcing payroll, some people don't understand. We still interact with it. We're still involved with it. We now have timesheets for everybody, and everybody that is hourly is tracked as such, and overtime is tracked and paid as such. comp banks, vacation time and comp and sick time and all of that. We have initiated the full robust processes for all of those. We still have a little bit of work to do to make sure all of our banks are right. But we are on a platform that helps to maintain that all going forward. So basically you input the hour from the timesheet. Right now, the timesheet's still manual. Eventually it could be all integrated, but basically we would input the hours from the timesheet and then it calculates everything else. So it calculates the payroll rules. You can't override the tax rules. You can't override the true system calculations to manipulate the numbers. So that is already in place with another provider. They're inputting the hours for us right now, and then we proof the reports. We'll eventually transition, so we're inputting that. But again, it controls the calculations and puts a lot of controls on the payroll overall. And then they do all of our true tax reporting. So all of our tax returns and tax filings, which have had some challenges in the past, will all be handled by experts in that.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You said you couldn't do a P&L. Can you do a balance sheet, knowing what's on your bank statements and what liabilities you're facing?
I know what is in as to, we know what's in our bank accounts right now. The bank accounts roughly correlate to the funds. So you have at least one bank account per fund. That doesn't mean what's in that balance is what's in that bank account is what belongs in that bank account. Meaning, we talked last night about how money was moved. Money was transferred. It was a shell game of money, and the transfers were frequent. Allegedly. Well, I can see transfers in the bank, so I know there were transfers.
It's a shell game, I'm saying allegedly.
And you have a bank statement, so you know if you have cash.
Yes. Oh, we know that. We know how much
you
cash we have right now. We know how much cash is in each bank account right now. What we don't know is, like, if one fund is this and the other is like, where should it actually be?
Right, you don't know the purity of the fund is what you're saying because of the transactions that she may have made.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Allegedly made, yes, sir. But it would seem to me that you could at least put together some sort of a balance sheet that tells you where you think you are.
Right,
Even though
we
it's
don't
not
have enough
pure.
information to know where we think we are. Like, we're still in that
No.
sorting out process. If we produce a balance sheet today, it would say something, it would
Right.
total to a number, and, we may come back in a week and go, yeah, that's completely wrong, toss that out. And the fear of that, the problem with that is, and we have no problem reporting cash totals. I think last night I said 4 million across all the funds. If we produce that and we come back in 6 months when we have a much better understanding, someone may hold us accountable for a report that we produce. So we're really trying to make sure that we're putting stuff out there that's accurate, that we're willing to be held to. Realizing that everything we produce, we've got a lot of caveats on. So,
But you must be using it to some extent if you're paying bills.
yes.
So
We
you're-
are.
You're
Oh, I'm
at least
managing cash.
using it to cover what you're
Right.
writing checks for.
Realizing that there's an accounting for that, and as the recovery process goes back, we'll have realizing how long that will take. At that point, we'll have a much better understanding of what those fund balances should have been, what we spent from where, and then we can allocate that recovery accordingly. So we're keeping track of all the information, knowing that we get more in time.
And I take it that either you or the forensic accountants are reconciling all these counts in order to find out what the movement was.
Right. To date, Markham's focus has been on supporting the district attorney and more what money left to places it shouldn't have gone to. Things, he gave lots of examples of how this was going to that account and this account and this account. So we know where money from third-party sources, from bank statements, from Fulton and from Capital One and from, there was another one I'm blanking. From those bank statements, he was seeing money out and money in, and matching stuff up. What he hasn't done is said, okay, internally, this went from here to here to here and then to here, and now you have to repay this and repay that. So
Right.
he has it, but he hasn't organized it in the way that there are your balances.
Right, you can't make your entries from that.
So
Was-
that is the next step between them doing some and me picking up where they left off. And some of that is a discussion of who we want to do that in terms of paying for that time.
Right. Was she allegedly smart enough to split some of those entries? So in other words, instead of moving 100 from A to B and then C and then back to A again, changing journal entry descriptions, did she break that 100? Do we know?
There was, I mean, there's all
There's no way to
combinations.
know.
There's a lot of combinations.
Okay.
And again, I have not scrutinized every historical transfer and transaction other than seeing high level and seeing some, just because again, we don't want to duplicate the efforts that they're doing, and I had a lot to focus on just to go forward. But, so, I mean, I am planning on showing cash relatively soon with lots of caveats on whether those are accurate fund balances. So I can do that soon, with the caveats.
Can you take us to paying bills, please?
Yes.
What's the software or the vendor that we're using for the payroll?
It's called Payroll Factory. The software that they use, I don't recall the exact name.
Chester County.
They're Melbourne.
Can you name it for the record? Joe Jester. Miller's.
They're used by a number of other municipalities in Chester County.
So,
We did a long review of what municipalities were using if they weren't doing it in-house and what the different providers, vendors were before making that decision.
Allison Rudolph, the interim manager of the summer, she guided the board through that process. That was over the summer.
she had just put that in when we got here.
Yeah, she said, okay, it's in, here you go. Thanks, Allison.
She was taking keys.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Can you pay bills, please?
Yes, Chrissy, two last things?
I'm sorry?
We're going over the internal controls we have in place.
Oh, I thought
We have a
you
couple
were
more
finished.
things. No, there's a lot of controls. This is good. This is good
Okay,
stuff. The
let's-
public wants to know
let's
this,
put
right?
Let's put all the controls on the table before we take more questions.
Okay. Okay.
Just get it all on the table.
All right,
and then
so,
we'll
I mentioned we were gonna be enhancing, policies and procedures. One of those specific things is, the exact, purchase order, requisition purchase order, accounts payable process, exactly what approval limits are, signing authority, and very specific guidelines on all that across, the various folks that procure services and how those approvals, do flow and need to flow. We've mentioned in other forums that Umbright is helping supplement some services still to ensure we have the proper segregation of duties, trying to, relieve that and reduce that as quickly as possible, but be sure that we have the bases covered on that segregation duties. We've also appointed Malley LLP, an auditor that I have a lot of familiarity with and is very well known in the municipal space, very good reputation. We will be getting together very shortly in the new year to start the planning process. I also think it would be a good idea to bring him to a public meeting. We definitely will do that at the end of the audit, but I would suggest that we do it earlier in the audit so he can explain, the process that he's gonna go through and the types of ways in which they can monitor controls and ensure that they're verifying third-party items and such.
We're very much looking forward to both of those presentations.
Thank you.
And lastly, there's the elected auditors we spoke about last night as well. And I do want to get together shortly in the new year. I would encourage them to, if we do it at a public meeting, then try to make sure that the Board of Auditor members are available to be at that particular public meeting with the auditor. If not, do something offline, but definitely offline between us as well. So that there's the extra opportunity for them to participate. And then at the end of the process, the auditors always give a presentation. This year in particular, I'm sure it'll be a full Board of Supervisors, but public meeting. But I have always had a Board of Auditors meeting with the hired auditor in order to basically have them come and speak and hand deliver the management letters and discuss the management letters, should there be any.
But the, I can't speak now. It's
Before we go
quiet.
on, I would like to get all the controls done before we go to questions, comments.
That's the crux of where, that's really where we are on controls. I mean, there's lots of devil in the detail within all of those I talked about, but that's some of the categories that we're focusing on, and, you know, each of which we're, you know, making progress on a daily, weekly basis. But it is not a short call, and it will take a while, and we are a very small team. So we are getting there as quickly as we can.
Yes.
The township that you worked for before was a first-class township.
No, second class.
Second class?
Mhm.
Because there's different rules for the auditors for the first-class townships
Second class
than,
township.
than for the second class.
The law for the second class township, once you have a hired auditor, there's not a lot of required responsibility by the board of auditors. There's minimal required. My personal view is that if you run and you've been elected, you are a volunteer to the community, and you should be, to the extent you want to, you should have the opportunity to be engaged in the process.
Are there any other questions to conclude the subject of the controls? 1, 2.
So, Amy, so you're gonna hire, new software, have processes in place. Will there be a sort of a written process for the everything, and when
Yes,
will that be?
it's a requirement.
Right,
I'm
and
not
when
sure
will,
how.
and about when would you think that would be available? I mean, assuming the software is not available till April, the earliest, in terms of actual usage.
I'm
Would
sorry,
it-
written policies and procedures, or written more detailed procedure manuals? They're sort of different levels.
Yeah, I would say the what we'd call standard SOPs, standard SOPs versus a working document.
Right,
So more the
right.
higher level
Yeah.
of processes that you're gonna recommend to the
Right.
board
Mhm.
for all these segregation of duties, for using
Right.
the certain controls in whatever software is chosen or recommended.
Right. It's hard at this point to commit to exact timeframes because every day is a new surprise still, every week. But I mean, I want it in place before the auditors are actually here testing.
Oh, so relatively soon.
At least a starting document. It may have room for more detail. I mean, some things are known by name, or whereas you could explain it a little bit more. But if you say something like that, that basically covers in accounting speak what it is.
Mhm.
I could put more language around it later, type of thing.
Right.
But why Chris is coming in early January is to talk about the controls I have in place now. That is his specific, and I added more agenda items, but his specific, I mean, he is hitting hard right away. Where are you now?
And you'll get feedback from the auditor
Yes,
about those.
yes,
Okay,
and he's
so-
collaborative,
So that process really starts in January?
yes.
And, okay, thank you.
I will warn you that he will be auditing all of 2019, of course, regardless of what Mally had done. So we will not have a clean 2019 audit.
Right.
I mean, there will be management letters, right? Because it's going to incorporate stuff we already know. I'm not saying it's going to be new information. I'm just saying it's not like because there's a new team now, it's not a point in time audit. It's an audit of the whole year. So it'll include both, and I'm sure he will, word commentary and such that, things we've already addressed, but I don't think he would leave something out because it was a problem during
Absolutely.
the financials he's looking at.
Nor should he.
Right, so they're best in class, and they're not gonna go easy just because.
No, they shouldn't. I mean, we need to know everything.
I was gonna ask, has the Board of Supervisors met the outside auditors, and have you approved the engagement?
We have approved the engagement because we had a time limit to do that, and we're in the process of setting up a meeting to meet the outside auditor.
Thanks.
The board was gracious to go off of Amy's experience with this team from her previous municipality in that regard, realizing that if in the first year, for any reason, that there's not satisfaction, which I highly doubt, we can always make a change for 2020.
We have the proposal, it was here, printed out at a public meeting, it is on the board website, and I have extra copies upstairs if you want it. It does go into a lot of detail, it does also list all their clients in the area, and the list is very extensive, and I have validated, as I mentioned, I meet with a lot of different finance directors in the area, and, kind of know their feedback on different things. Everyone I've ever talked to about Mally has been positive. And I go to their educational seminars where I meet other customers.
I wasn't questioning their skills, I just wanted to know whether or not
It was a tough
the board had
situation
met them
with
and improved engagement.
some particular language in the second class township code.
Okay, so we finished that.
Yes.
Next subject.
So, the bill voucher process. There have always been bill vouchers. You can call them a lot of different things. Check register, bill voucher, checklist, bill list, warrant report. We have bill voucher summary, bill voucher report right now. So this has been previously a list of checks. And in a method and mode, in a method and mode where a world operates on only checks, a list of checks is appropriate. We are now in a world that uses credit cards and ACH. We don't use it a ton, but we do use it, and obviously the alleged situation on use. But I'm saying going forward. So I think you can address last night, but the credit cards, I mean, they are efficient and a very reasonable and responsible and often used form of payment in the municipal world and in all worlds. There can be controls around them very easily, and we are doing that now. So the credit card transactions are in here. So basically, let's kind of just give an overview. Summary page will always be a summary page. Yes, it might change over time what it actually looks like. But checks, credit cards, ACH. Then there are transfers required to meet the cash flow needs in different funds, and those are included as well. There are sometimes urgent needs to make a payment in between meetings and approvals, and we seek approval for those offline, but they would then be included, either a special cut done and put on the website and referred to at the meeting, or included in the next meetings, so that everything is included in this. Then you have many pages of the traditional check register, and then you have the credit card reports. The credit card report, these are now being loaded into QuickBooks. It's the second to last page. The credit card transactions are now being loaded from a file from the credit card company, the QuickBooks specialty file, into QuickBooks and processed. So we can attribute the GL account information to each and every transaction, which is not something that was done before. So that's one of the challenges with presenting a year-to-date P&L, is that large chunks are not in proper GL accounts. So that is what we've begun doing, and that's what I have here. And ACHs, it's primarily utilities. We ordered some checks, which, because they're kind of, through the bank and whatnot, they came through ACH. And then our American One Simple IRA is ACH, and payroll. Our payroll, in my past, I've not always put payroll on the bill packet because it is an approved expenditure in the budget. I'm happy to put aggregated information in the bill voucher if you want it, whether it's required or not. So it's in here now at high level numbers.
It would be good to put in so we can look pay period to pay period for any large changes. Thank you.
And you'll be able to see that on, we'll also be producing the budget to actual, so you'll be able to see that in actual more granular detail.
Okay.
Right, yeah, so
You'll
the
see it in
P&L
other
reports in the
ways.
future will categorize expenses by type and by department, so you can see salary and benefits, in total, as well as by department and so. Any questions on the general process or format or feedback or specifics on the specific bills?
My question is, do we need to sign this for tonight so you can pay bills?
Yes, you should do a motion on this, when you're ready. And since we're talking about the process and the format and all, your choice as to how you wanna, what order you're gonna go in.
Right, so there are 3 copies of this. You want 3 signed copies? You want 1 signed
Well,
copy?
there's a bunch of copies in here, everyone's looking.
I know, there's a copy, there's a copy, there's a copy. Do I sign
Right.
1? Do I sign 3?
You only need one, and we still put the sign pages on the individual check registers, but I don't think that's really gonna be necessary going forward unless you wanna sign each detail page too. But, well, you're not at the bottom of each detail, so, to me, signing the cover page that includes everything that's in here once, same document, each of you signing is sufficient. Right now, we did print them with the signatures, so for tonight, I'd like you to fill out the slots that are there.
May we sign the one that you're looking at?
Sure.
Okay, so this is what we're going to sign.
Okay. So the,
Thank you.
yes, so I think if you're okay going forward, you would sign the cover page and not have to sign sub-pages with it. But it's all included, it's gonna be PDF in one packet, and I think, Michael, is it on the website now?
It is.
Right, so it'll be up there. Now, in the first 2 minutes, I'm running in a just-in-time process. I know that you've been here for the budget meetings, you've seen them running in, and we're hot off the press. That's a factor of the position that we're in and how much we're trying to do as quickly as possible to get as much into the meeting as we can. That is not the normal operating protocol. The normal operating protocol, once we get things handled, would be that this would be provided to the supervisors in advance and posted to the website in advance. We also won't print out and waste as much paper unless we really have requests to do it. But I would prefer not to waste all the paper and print these huge things every time. They would be available on the website in advance for you to look at or to bring your tablet or whatever. There is Wi-Fi in here. I would encourage if we don't want to kill a lot of trees, that would be a way to help it going forward.
Okay, I think there was a question back here. Yes, sir.
So, the transfer total,
Yes.
the 3 transfers, I think add to 963,000, not 953,000.
Megan's. When we added the escrow 10, did we not drag the sum? Wow, that's embarrassing.
So that would mean that the copy they're looking at, they shouldn't sign.
Point taken. Megan,
What am I
will you go
altering?
reprint one?
What's that?
He's asking if, you see what he's talking about, Megan? She could print a fresh copy.
Initial the change too, please,
Oh, or,
Whitney.
okay. I'd prefer a clean final copy on the website.
We'll produce a,
We can do it, sign it at the end.
no problem.
Okay, so are we waiting for one or am I signing? Well, first we
Wait,
have
the
to vote.
detail pages are the same.
So